The phone call came at 2:47 a.m., cutting through the steady hum of machines in the pediatric ICU. I was adjusting the ventilator for little Emma Rodriguez when my personal phone buzzed against my scrub pocket. "Miss Vance?" The voice was cold, mechanical. "This is regarding your mortgage payment that's currently 90 days past due. The amount owed is $600,000. My hands froze on Emma's chart. $600,000. I barely made $60,000 a year as a pediatric nurse at Seattle Children's Hospital. "I'm sorry, there must be some mistake. I don't have a mortgage. The account shows the last 4 digits of your social security number as 7,432, current address listed as 1247 Cali Drive, and an annual income of $120,000. The blood drained from my face. Cali Drive. That was the address of the sprawling house my father Victor had been bragging about for months, the one with the perfect view of Elliott Bay. But my social security number was definitely mine. "There's been some kind of identity theft," I managed, my voice barely a whisper. "Ma'am, foreclosure proceedings will begin Monday morning unless payment is received in full. Your emergency contact is listed as Victor Vance." She rattled off my father's cell phone number. I called him immediately, despite the hour. He answered on the first ring, suspiciously alert. "Athena, sweetheart, you're working late again." "Dad, I just got a call about a mortgage. At your address. In my name." There was a pause that lasted exactly 3 seconds too long. Then came his laugh, that booming, confident sound that had charmed clients for decades. "Oh, that? Honey, don't worry about that. You know how these credit companies mess things up. I'll handle it in the morning." "Handle what? What is there to handle if it's just a mistake?" "Athena, trust your old man. Have I ever let you down?" The line went dead, leaving me staring at my phone. My father's dismissiveness felt wrong, practiced, like he'd been rehearsing those exact words. By 7 a.m., I'd made a decision. I was going straight to the bank. First National Bank of Washington opened at 9, and I was waiting outside at 8:30. The loan officer, Mrs. Carter, listened to my story with growing concern. When I finished, she asked for my ID, then disappeared into the back office. When she returned, her expression had changed completely. Gone was the polite customer service smile, replaced by something that looked like fear. "Miss Vance, I need to show you something, but first I have to ask, did you apply for this mortgage?" "No, absolutely not." Mrs. Carter spread a thick folder across her desk. Inside were photocopies of documents that made my stomach lurch. There was my signature on a loan application, my pay stubs showing a salary I'd never earned, employment verification from a company I'd never worked for. These documents were submitted 6 months ago. The loan was processed unusually quickly. But Miss Vance, if you're telling me the truth, then someone has committed very serious crimes using your identity. I picked up one of the fake pay stubs, studying the perfect forgery of my signature. Who was the emergency contact when this was processed? Victor Vance, listed as your father and co-signer. The room seemed to tilt sideways. My father wasn't just connected to this mortgage, he was the one who'd orchestrated it. "Mrs. Carter, what happens now?" "Now we call the police. I'm also required to inform you that there's another application pending in your name, a cash-out refinance for $200,000 scheduled to close next week." My legs went weak. Not only had my father already stolen my identity to buy his dream house, he was planning to drain even more money before I discovered the truth. I called the police from the bank parking lot. The Seattle Police Department's Financial Crimes Unit connected me with Detective Sarah Rowan, a no-nonsense woman who'd clearly seen every kind of family betrayal imaginable. "Miss Vance, based on what you've told me, this isn't a family dispute. This is calculated identity theft and fraud. I need you to come in this afternoon to file a formal report." At the police station, Detective Rowan showed me the scope of the fraud. It wasn't just the mortgage. Someone using my identity had opened credit cards, applied for loans, and even submitted paperwork for bankruptcy protection. The IP address for most of these applications traces back to a construction office registered to Victor Vance. Detective Rowan explained, "The timing suggests this has been planned for months. Miss Vance, did your father have access to your personal documents?" "Yes. I mean, we're family. I never thought to hide anything from him." That's exactly what he was counting on. That evening, my phone started ringing. First, my mother, Evelyn, her voice thick with tears. "Athena, honey, surely you can work this out together? Family doesn't call the police on family." Then my half-sister, Bianca, far less sympathetic. "Do you have any idea what you're doing? This could destroy Dad's reputation, his business, all over some paperwork mix-up. Bianca, he forged my signature to steal my identity and buy himself a house. This isn't a mix-up." "You're being dramatic. Dad would never intentionally hurt you." But love, I was beginning to understand, could be weaponized just as easily as hate. The breaking point came 3 days later, when Detective Rowan called with an update that left me speechless. "Miss Vance, we found something else." Hidden in your father's computer were draft documents for additional fraud and what appears to be a complete bankruptcy filing in your name. There are even pre-written letters of apology, supposedly from you. A bankruptcy filing? Everything's prepared except the final signatures. Based on the timeline, it looks like he planned to max out your credit, then file bankruptcy to escape the debt. You would have been left with destroyed credit while he kept all the money. This wasn't desperation or a momentary lapse in judgment. This was a calculated plan to sacrifice my financial future to save his failing business. That Sunday, I made a decision. I would face him in front of the entire family. I printed every piece of evidence and organized them into a folder thick enough to stop a bullet. The family dinner was held at Evelyn's house. Victor arrived late, making a grand entrance with expensive wine and stories about his latest business successes. I waited until after dessert, when everyone was relaxed. Then I reached into my purse and pulled out the folder, setting it on the dining room table with a sound like a judge's gavel. I need to show everyone something. The conversation died instantly. I opened the folder and spread the documents across the table like tarot cards, revealing an ugly future. These are police reports documenting identity theft, mortgage fraud, and conspiracy charges, all involving the use of my name, my credit, and my social security number to obtain nearly $1 million in loans. Evelyn gasped. Bianca leaned forward, scanning the papers. But Victor just sat there, still wearing that confident smile. Athena, honey, you're making this sound much worse than it is. I may have made some mistakes with paperwork, but family helps family. Everything I have will be yours someday anyway. Everything you have is built on identity theft. And according to these documents, your plan wasn't to share anything with me. Your plan was to destroy my credit and leave me holding the bag for your debts. I picked up the draft bankruptcy filing and held it up so everyone could see. This is a bankruptcy petition filled out in my name, with fake financial information. You were going to ruin me completely. For the first time, Victor's composure cracked. I never filed that. I was just exploring options. Options for how to destroy your daughter's life while protecting yourself? Bianca finally spoke up. Even if Dad made some mistakes, calling the police was completely inappropriate. This should have stayed in the family. The family doesn't steal from each other. The family doesn't forge signatures and plan to leave their children bankrupt. What we have isn't a family, it's a criminal organization. Victor slammed his hand on the table. I built this life. I gave you everything you have. And this is how you repay me? You didn't build anything. You stole it. That's when my phone rang. Detective Rowan's name appeared on the screen. I answered and put it on speaker. Miss Vance, I'm calling to let you know that we'll be filing formal charges tomorrow morning. The evidence is overwhelming. The silence that followed was deafening. Evelyn was sobbing openly. Bianca looked like she'd been slapped. And Victor, for the first time in my life, looked genuinely afraid. I ended the call and carefully gathered up the papers. The house on Cali Drive will be foreclosed on. Your construction business is under investigation, and you're going to prison. Victor stood up so fast his chair fell backward. This is what 26 years of being your father gets me? You ungrateful little bitch. The words hit like physical blows, but they also clarified something I'd been struggling with. Victor had never seen me as his daughter. I'd been a tool to be used for his benefit. Get out, I said quietly. Get out of this house, and don't contact me again. When the case went to court 3 months later, I sat in the gallery watching my father plead guilty to 18 counts of identity theft, mortgage fraud, and conspiracy. The judge was not sympathetic. Mr. Vance, the court finds your crimes particularly heinous because of the relationship of trust. You didn't just steal money, you betrayed the most fundamental bonds of family. Victor received 18 months in federal prison, followed by 5 years of supervised probation. More importantly for me, all the fraudulent debt was officially removed from my credit report. The day Victor reported to prison, I bought my first house. It was a small craftsman bungalow in Ballard. Nothing like the mansion he'd stolen my credit to buy, but every square inch of it was honestly mine. When I signed the closing documents, I thought about how different my signature looked from the forgeries he'd created. My relationship with the rest of my family required careful navigation. Evelyn eventually started therapy and began to understand how her passivity had enabled Victor's abuse. Bianca never forgave me. In her mind, I'd destroyed the family over a misunderstanding. But the most unexpected change was in myself. For years, I'd defined my worth through my ability to help others, to be useful, to avoid conflict at any cost. The trauma of discovering my father's betrayal forced me to examine every relationship in my life through a new lens. I started volunteering with a nonprofit that helped identity theft victims navigate the complex process of clearing their credit. Every time I helped someone dispute fraudulent charges, I felt like I was reclaiming something that had been stolen from me. A year after Victor's conviction, I got a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Athena? It's me. I'm calling from prison. The voice was older, rougher, but unmistakably my father's Precker. You're not supposed to contact me. The restraining order is still in effect. I know, but I needed to tell you something. I've been thinking in here, and I realize I made some mistakes. I want to make things right between us. The old me might have felt a flutter of hope at those words. But the person I'd become heard something different in his voice. Not genuine remorse, but manipulation. Victor, you didn't make mistakes. You committed crimes. You spent years planning to destroy my financial life to save your own. Don't be so cold, Athena. I'm still your father. No, you're not. A father protects his children. What you did wasn't fatherhood, it was exploitation. I hung up and reported the call to Detective Rowan. But the conversation stayed with me, not because it upset me, but because of how little it affected me. His power over me was completely gone. The second spring after Victor's conviction, I planted a dogwood tree in my small backyard. As I dug the hole and positioned the young tree's roots, I thought about how different this felt from anything I'd experienced in my childhood home. The tree was mine, purchased with my own money, planted in soil I owned. No one could take it away from me or claim credit for its growth. It would survive or fail based on the care I gave it, not because of anyone else's agenda. Standing in my garden that evening, watching the first green buds appear on my dogwood tree, I understood that real love doesn't require you to sacrifice your safety, your credit, or your future. Real love protects and nurtures. And sometimes, the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to walk away from people who see you as a resource rather than a human being. The tree would bloom in its own time, rooted in truth rather than lies, and so would I.